Thunder split the Manhattan sky as black SUVs surrounded St. Verena Cathedral like a military siege. Inside, terrified guests whispered under crystal chandeliers while armed men blocked every exit. Selina Vale trembled in the bridal suite, ivory silk gloves forced onto her shaking hands. Her sister had vanished. The Luciano crime family didn't forgive humiliation. Now the most feared mafia boss in New York waited at the altar. And Selina wasn't the bride he expected. "I'm not marrying him," she whispered. Her stepmother grabbed the necklace her dead mother left behind. "Then your brother loses everything, and the Lucianos collect debts in blood." 2 minutes later, Selina walked down that aisle toward Damian Luciano, cold, dangerous, terrifyingly intelligent. At the altar, she confessed, "I'm not Evelyn." His dark eyes locked onto hers. "I know." He never looked away. Continue the wedding. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where you're watching from. The cathedral doors opened with the kind of sound that meant there was no going back. Selina's legs barely worked. Each step forward felt like wading through concrete while her heart tried to claw its way out of her chest. The organ music swelled, something classical and expensive that she didn't recognize. But all she could hear was the blood rushing in her ears. 200 faces turned toward her. Every single one of them looked like they'd been carved from stone. The guests weren't here to celebrate. They were here to witness a transaction, a business merger sealed in white silk and lies. The kind of wedding where the flowers cost more than most people's cars, and the security carried guns under their tailored jackets. Selina's hands shook so badly, the bouquet of white roses nearly slipped from her grip. She forced herself to keep moving, down the aisle, past rows of men with dead eyes and expensive watches, past women dripping in diamonds who stared at her like she was an insect that had crawled onto their designer shoes. At the front of the cathedral, standing beneath an arch woven with orchids and baby's breath, Damian Luciano waited. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just watched her approach with the kind of focus that made her skin prickle. Damian Luciano was 34 years old and looked like violence wrapped in a three-piece suit. Dark hair slicked back, sharp jawline, eyes so black they looked like they could swallow light. He stood perfectly still while the rest of the world seemed to tilt and spin around him. Everyone in New York knew his name. Everyone in New York feared it. He controlled shipping routes, construction contracts, union votes, and half the judges in the state. His family had built an empire on blood and loyalty, and Damian had inherited that empire at 26 when his father got shot in the back during a restaurant meeting. Since then, he'd turned the Luciano organization into something more dangerous than any street gang. He'd made it untouchable. Selina reached the altar and her knees almost buckled. Margaret Vale, her stepmother, stood in the front row wearing a pale blue dress and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She nodded once, a warning disguised as encouragement. Do this or lose everything. Selina turned toward Damian. Up close, he was even more terrifying. 6'3", broad shoulders, a scar along his left eyebrow that looked like it came from a knife fight, not a childhood accident. He smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. The priest cleared his throat nervously. "Dearly beloved, wait." Selina's voice came out barely louder than a whisper. The entire cathedral went silent. Damian's gaze sharpened. Selina swallowed hard and forced herself to look directly into those black eyes. "I need to tell you something." A muscle in Damian's jaw twitched. "Tell me." "I'm not Evelyn." For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Damian said, "I know." The words hit her like a slap. "You... what?" "I know exactly who you are, Selina Vale." Her pulse hammered. "Then why—" "Continue the wedding," Damian said to the priest without looking away from her. The priest hesitated. "Sir, if the bride—" "Continue." The word came out flat and final. The priest nodded quickly and opened his book with trembling hands. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Selina couldn't move, couldn't think. Her brain had short-circuited somewhere between "I know" and "continue the wedding." This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Evelyn was supposed to be standing here. Beautiful, charming, manipulative Evelyn, who had spent the last 6 months planning this wedding down to the color of the napkins. Evelyn, who had smiled sweetly while their father negotiated the marriage contract with the Luciano family like she was a used car being sold for parts. But yesterday morning, Evelyn had disappeared. No note, no explanation, just gone. And Margaret Vale had marched into Selena's bedroom at dawn with a wedding dress and a simple ultimatum. Put this on, or your brother loses his scholarship, your father loses his protection, and you lose everything. Selena had tried to argue, tried to refuse, but Margaret had played her final card with surgical precision. The Lucianos don't forgive humiliation, she'd said coldly. If no bride walks down that aisle today, they'll assume your father tried to cheat them. And when the Lucianos feel disrespected, people disappear, permanently. So here Selena stood, wearing her sister's dress, marrying her sister's psychopath. The priest droned through the vows while Selena's mind raced in circles. He knew I wasn't Evelyn, so why is he going through with this? Do you, Damien Luciano, take this woman? I do, Damien said. No hesitation, no emotion, just cold certainty. The priest turned toward Selena. And do you? She does, Damien interrupted. Selena's head snapped up. Excuse me? Damien's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You're here, that's your answer. That's not how vows work. It is today. The priest looked like he wanted to crawl under the altar and hide. Selena felt her temper flare through the fear. You don't get to speak for me. I just did. I could walk out right now. You won't. You don't know that. Damien leaned in close enough that only she could hear him. You're still standing here because you're trying to protect your family. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. So yes, Selena, I do know. His breath was warm against her ear. His voice was low and dangerous and somehow worse than shouting. Selena's hands clenched around the bouquet so hard her knuckles went white. She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to throw the flowers in his face and storm out of the cathedral. But he was right. She wouldn't leave. Because if she walked away now, Noah would lose his chance at medical school. Her father would lose the protection that kept his business from being seized by Damien's competitors. And Margaret would make sure Selena paid for the humiliation in ways that would hurt for years. So she stayed. I do, she whispered. The priest nearly sagged with relief. Then by the power vested in me. Skip to the end, Damien said. I now pronounce you. Damien kissed her before the priest finished the sentence. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was a claim, a brand, a public statement that Selena Vale now belonged to him, whether she liked it or not. When he pulled back, his eyes were still locked on hers. Welcome to the family, he murmured. The cathedral erupted in applause that sounded more like a threat than a celebration. The reception was held at the Luciano estate, a sprawling mansion in Westchester that looked like it had been stolen from a European castle and reassembled brick by brick on American soil. Selena sat at the head table in her sister's wedding dress, while waiters served champagne and armed security stood at every entrance. Damien sat beside her, perfectly relaxed, shaking hands with crime lords and politicians like this was just another Tuesday. Nobody mentioned Evelyn. Nobody asked questions. They just smiled their cold smiles and offered their cold congratulations and moved on. Selena felt like she was watching herself from outside her own body. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But then a woman approached the table and everything got worse. She was in her late 50s with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and jewelry that probably cost more than Selena's childhood home. She moved like a queen, graceful, controlled, absolutely certain of her power. Damien, the woman said warmly. Damien stood and kissed her cheek. Isabella. Isabella Luciano, Damien's stepmother. The woman who had helped raise him after his mother died when he was 12. The woman who currently ran half the Luciano Empire's political connections. Isabella's gaze slid toward Selena with the precision of a scalpel. So this is the bride. Selena, Damien said. My wife. The word sounded strange in his mouth. Clinical, like he was introducing a new piece of furniture. Isabella smiled. How unexpected. Selena forced herself to stand and extend her hand. Nice to meet you. Isabella's handshake was cold and brief. I'm sure it is. The insult was wrapped in silk, but it landed like a punch. Damien's expression didn't change. Is there something you need, Isabella? Just offering my congratulations. Isabella's smile sharpened, though I do hope our new addition understands that titles in this family are earned, not given. She'll learn, Damien said flatly. Isabella's gaze lingered on Selena for another moment, measuring, calculating, dismissing. Then she glided away toward a group of older men in expensive suits. Selena sat back down slowly. Her hands were shaking again. She hates me, she whispered. She hates everyone, Damien replied. Don't take it personally. Hard not to when she looked at me like I'm trash she scraped off her shoe. Damien picked up his champagne glass and took a slow sip. Isabella expected your sister. She spent months preparing Evelyn to play a specific role in this family. You showing up instead ruins her plans. What role? The decorative wife who smiles for cameras and stays quiet during business meetings. Selena turned to look at him. And you think I'll do that? Damien's mouth curved slightly. No, that's why I married you instead. Before Selena could figure out what the hell that meant, the music changed. A man in a tuxedo stepped onto the small stage near the dance floor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. Luciano for their first dance. Selena's stomach dropped. I don't... Damien was already standing. He extended his hand toward her. We have to, he said quietly. They're watching. He was right. Every eye in the ballroom was locked on them. Selena took his hand and let him lead her onto the dance floor. The music was slow and elegant, something with strings that made her think of old movies where people fell in love and lived happily ever after. This wasn't that kind of story. Damien pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding hers. He moved with the kind of confidence that came from years of practice. Smooth, controlled, effortless. Selena stumbled twice trying to follow his lead. Relax, he murmured. Hard to relax when I'm dancing with a stranger I just married. Fair point. They turned slowly while cameras flashed around them like trapped lightning. Why did you really go through with this? Selena asked quietly. Damien's expression didn't change. Your sister would have betrayed me. How do you know? Because she's been sleeping with my cousin Marco for 3 months. The world tilted sideways. What? Marco's been trying to take control of the family for years. Marrying Evelyn was his insurance policy. If she became my wife, he'd have leverage. Selena's mind reeled. So Evelyn didn't run away? She ran to someone. Marco picked her up yesterday morning, and they're probably halfway to Monaco by now. And you knew? I've known since June. Then why not call off the wedding? Damien's grip on her waist tightened slightly. Because I need a wife for political reasons. The marriage contract with your father is valuable. And you're less likely to stab me in the back than your sister. Selena almost laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. You married me because I'm the safer option. I married you because you're honest. There's a difference. The song ended. Damien released her and stepped back. Welcome to the Luciano estate, he said. Your room is in the East Wing. Security will show you the way. Then he walked away. Just like that. Selena stood alone on the dance floor while guests applauded politely and waiters refilled champagne glasses, and the party continued like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Selena had just married the most dangerous man in New York, and he'd done it because she was useful. The east wing of the Luciano mansion was enormous and empty. Selena's new bedroom looked like it belonged in a museum. 4-poster bed with silk sheets, antique furniture, paintings on the walls that were probably worth more than her father's house. A walk-in closet full of clothes that didn't belong to her. Evelyn's clothes. Selena sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her reflection in the mirror across the room. She was still wearing the wedding dress, still wearing the makeup Margaret had forced on her, still playing a role that wasn't hers. A knock at the door made her jump. Come in, she said automatically. A young woman in a black uniform entered carrying a tray. I brought tea, ma'am. I didn't ask for tea. Mr. Luciano requested it. The woman set the tray on the nightstand and left without another word. Selena stared at the tea like it might be poisoned. Then she laughed. It came out harsh and ragged and a little bit unhinged. She'd just married a man who investigated her family for months, who knew her sister was cheating on him, who orchestrated this entire disaster like a chess game. and now he was sending her tea. Selena stood up and walked to the window. The Luciano estate stretched out below her, manicured gardens, stone fountains, armed guards patrolling the perimeter in the dark. This was her life now. Trapped in a mansion, married to a stranger, playing a part in someone else's plan. Her phone buzzed in the small purse Margaret had given her. Selena pulled it out and saw a text from Noah. "Did it happen? Are you okay?" She typed back quickly. "I'm fine." "Don't worry." Another text came through immediately. "Margaret said you looked beautiful." Selena's throat tightened. Margaret had been at the wedding. She'd watched Selena walk down that aisle, watched her marry Damian Luciano, and she'd smiled the whole time. Selena deleted the message and tossed the phone onto the bed. She needed to get out of this dress, out of this room, out of her own head before she started screaming. She unzipped the wedding gown with shaking hands and let it fall to the floor in a puddle of silk and lace. Underneath, she was still herself, still Selena Vale, still the girl who'd spent her whole life being second choice, second daughter, second priority, second bride. A soft sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Selena grabbed a robe from the closet and pulled it on quickly. The door opened without a knock. Damian stood in the doorway, still wearing his tuxedo. He looked calm, controlled, completely unbothered by the fact that he'd just walked into her bedroom without permission. "We need to talk," he said. Selena crossed her arms. "You could have knocked. This is my house. This is my room. Technically, it's Evelyn's room. You're just borrowing it." The casual cruelty of that statement hit her like a slap. Damian stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I need you to understand how things work here. Let me guess. You give orders and I follow them." "Close." He moved toward the window and looked out at the dark gardens. "I give orders. You survive. That's the arrangement." Selena felt her temper flare. "I didn't agree to this. You said I do in front of 200 witnesses. That's legally binding. Under false pretenses, doesn't matter." Damian turned to face her. "You're my wife now. That means you're under my protection. It also means you're a target. Every enemy I've made in the last decade will try to use you against me. Then let me leave." "Can't do that." "Why not?" "Because leaving makes you look weak, and weak people don't survive in this world." Selena stared at him. "You really don't care, do you, about any of this?" Damian's expression didn't change. "I care about keeping my family safe. I care about maintaining power. Everything else is noise. Including me." He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look him in the eye. "You want honesty, Selena? Fine. I didn't marry you because I love you. I married you because you were the best option in a bad situation. But that doesn't mean I'll let anyone hurt you. You're mine now, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in his voice made her skin crawl. "I'm not a thing you own," she said quietly. "In this world? Yes, you are." Selena wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to do something that would crack that cold, controlled mask. Instead, she said, "Get out." Damian studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once and walked toward the door. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. "One more thing." "What?" "There's a family dinner tomorrow night. You'll attend. And if I don't? Then Isabella wins. And trust me, you don't want that." He left. The door clicked shut behind him. Selena stood alone in the borrowed room wearing a borrowed robe surrounded by borrowed clothes. She'd survived her wedding day, but she had a feeling the real nightmare was just beginning. The next morning, Selena woke up to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a knock at the door. "Ma'am?" A woman's voice. "Mr. Luciano sent me to help you prepare for the day." Selena sat up slowly. Her head felt like it was full of cotton. "I don't need help." "It's not optional, ma'am." Of course it wasn't. Selena opened the door to find the same young woman from last night holding a garment bag. "I'm Maria," the woman said. "I'll be assisting you while you're here." "I don't need a babysitter." Maria smiled tightly. "I'm not a babysitter, ma'am. I'm staff." She walked past Selena and hung the garment bag in the closet. Selena closed the door and tried to gather her thoughts. "How long have you worked here?" 6 years. "And you work for Damian?" I work for the family. Is there a difference? Maria paused. In this house? No. She unzipped the garment bag to reveal a sleek black dress. This is for tonight's dinner. I have clothes. Not appropriate ones. Selena bit back a sharp response. Maria was just doing her job. Getting angry at her wouldn't change anything. Fine, Selena said. What time is dinner? 7 o'clock, formal attire. The family gathers in the main dining hall. How many people? Usually 15 to 20. It depends on who's in town. 15 to 20 people. All of them probably as cold and dangerous as Damien. Selena's stomach turned. Maria must have seen something in her expression because she softened slightly. It's not as bad as you think. Really? Really. Just don't talk unless someone asks you a direct question. And don't contradict Mr. Luciano in front of the others. That's the advice? Stay quiet and obedient? Maria's smile was sad. That's how you survive. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Selena explored the mansion, or at least the parts that weren't locked or guarded. She found a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a gym that looked like it belonged in a professional training facility, a swimming pool that could have fit 3 of her childhood homes inside it. Every room was immaculate, every surface polished, every corner watched by cameras that swiveled to follow her movements. She felt like a prisoner in a palace. By 6:30, Maria returned to help her get ready. The black dress fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Like it had been tailored specifically for her. Did Damien have this made? Selena asked. Maria didn't answer. She just finished pinning Selena's hair into an elegant twist and stepped back. You look lovely, ma'am. Selena barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked like someone who belonged in this world. Someone polished and perfect and completely fake. At 7 o'clock, Maria led her downstairs to the main dining hall. It was enormous. A long table that could seat 30 people. Crystal chandeliers hanging from a vaulted ceiling, paintings of stern-looking men in old-fashioned clothes staring down from the walls. 15 people were already seated. They all turned to look at Selena when she entered. Damien sat at the head of the table wearing a dark suit. He didn't smile, didn't acknowledge her. He just gestured toward the empty chair beside him. Selena walked the length of the table, feeling every eye on her. She sat down carefully. A man across from her leaned forward. He was in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and a scar across his knuckles. So you're the replacement bride? Laughter rippled around the table. Selena's face burned. Damien's expression didn't change. Carlo, shut up, Carlo grinned. Just making conversation, cousin. Make it somewhere else. The laughter died. Isabella sat 3 seats down wearing a cream-colored suit and a string of pearls. She sipped her wine and watched Selena like a scientist observing a lab rat. A woman beside Isabella spoke up. I heard Evelyn ran off with Marco. Is that true? Elena, Damien said quietly. Drop it. I'm just saying it must be embarrassing. Having your bride stolen by your own cousin, Elena. The single word was a warning. Elena fell silent. Waiters appeared with the first course. Some kind of soup that probably cost more than Selena's monthly rent back when she had an apartment. Everyone ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Isabella set down her spoon and turned toward Selena. Do you play any instruments, dear? It was the first time anyone had addressed her directly all evening. Selena hesitated. Violin. Interest flickered around the table. How lovely, Isabella said. Your sister never mentioned that. My sister and I aren't close. Clearly. More laughter. Selena felt her temper rising. She wanted to throw the soup in Isabella's perfect face, wanted to stand up and walk out. But Maria's words echoed in her head. That's how you survive. So she stayed silent. Dinner dragged on, course after course of expensive food that Selena barely tasted. Conversation swirled around her. Business deals, political maneuvering, thinly veiled threats disguised as friendly advice. Nobody asked her opinion. Nobody included her. She was decorative, irrelevant, a placeholder. By the time dessert arrived, Selena felt like she might scream. Then someone noticed the violin. It was resting on a stand near the fireplace. Old, beautiful, probably an antique worth more than a car. Carlo pointed at it with his fork. Hey, Damien, make your wife play something. Selena's blood went cold. Damien glanced at the violin, then at Selena. She doesn't have to. Oh, come on, Elena said. We could use some entertainment. Isabella smiled. I think it's a wonderful idea. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a challenge. Selena looked at Damien. His expression was unreadable. She could refuse, could stay seated and let them mock her, or she could fight back. Selena stood up. The table went quiet. She walked to the fireplace and picked up the violin. It was heavier than she expected. The wood was smooth and warm under her fingers. She hadn't played in months, not since her mother died. But muscle memory was a strange thing. Selena lifted the violin to her shoulder and drew the bow across the strings. The first note rang out clear and haunting. Then she started to play. It was a piece her mother had taught her when she was 12, something Russian and melancholy that made you feel like you were standing in the middle of winter, watching snow fall on a frozen lake. Selena closed her eyes and let the music take over. She forgot about the dinner, forgot about the audience, forgot about everything except the way the notes seemed to pull themselves out of the violin like they'd been trapped inside waiting for someone to set them free. When she finished, the dining hall was completely silent. Selena opened her eyes. Everyone was staring at her, not with mockery, not with dismissal, with something that looked like shock. Even Isabella looked unsettled. Damien was watching her with an expression she couldn't read, something between surprise and calculation. Selena set the violin back on its stand and returned to her seat. Nobody spoke. Finally, Isabella cleared her throat. That was unexpected. Thank you, Selena said quietly. Carlo laughed nervously. Yeah, damn. Didn't know you could do that. There's a lot you don't know about me. The words came out sharper than she intended, but she didn't take them back. Dinner ended shortly after that. The guests dispersed like ghosts fading into the walls. Damien stood and gestured for Selena to follow him. They walked in silence through the mansion's corridors until they reached his private office. It was smaller than she expected. Dark wood, leather chairs, a desk covered in papers and a laptop that probably contained enough incriminating evidence to put half of New York's elite in prison. Damien closed the door and turned to face her. That was impressive, he said. Selena crossed her arms. I'm not a performing monkey. I know. Then why did you let them humiliate me? I didn't. You handled it yourself. By playing for them like a trained animal. Damien stepped closer. You turned their mockery into respect. That's not weakness, that's strategy. Strategy, Selena repeated bitterly. Is that all you think about? In this world? Yes. Then you're missing the point. What point? That people aren't chess pieces. We're human beings. Damien studied her for a long moment. You really believe that, don't you? I believe survival requires sacrifice, and sometimes that means using people. Even your own wife? Especially my own wife. The honesty was brutal. Selena felt something inside her crack. You're exactly what everyone says you are. A monster. Damien didn't flinch. Yes. And you don't care. I care about keeping my family alive. Everything else is secondary. Selena turned toward the door. I'm going to bed. Selena. She stopped but didn't turn around. You did well tonight, Damien said quietly. Better than I expected. I'm so glad I exceeded your expectations. She left before he could respond. What? Back in her room, Selena finally let herself break down. She sat on the floor with her back against the bed and cried silently into her hands. This was her life now, trapped with a man who saw her as a tool, surrounded by people who saw her as a joke, playing a role that would never feel real. Her phone buzzed. Selena wiped her eyes and checked the screen. A text from an unknown number. You played beautifully tonight. Your mother would be proud. Selena's breath caught. She stared at the message. Nobody here knew about her mother. Nobody except another text appeared. We should talk. There are things about your mother's death you need to know. Who is this? No response. Selena waited 5 minutes. 10. 15. Nothing. She locked the phone and set it aside. Then she noticed something on the nightstand. A folder. It hadn't been there earlier. Selena opened it with shaking hands. Inside were documents, medical records, hospital admission forms, all of them marked with her mother's name, and a signature at the bottom that made Selena's blood run cold. Dr. Richard Moretti, Luciano family physician. Her mother had been treated by the Luciano family doctor 2 weeks before she died. Selena's hand started shaking so badly she almost dropped the folder. Someone had left this here deliberately. Someone wanted her to know. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Who is it?" No answer. Selena stood slowly and walked to the door. She opened it a crack. The hallway was empty. But on the floor just outside her room was a single white envelope. Selena picked it up carefully. Inside was a photograph. Her mother, standing outside the Luciano estate, alive. 3 days before her car accident. Selena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, still clutching the photograph. Everything she'd been told about her mother's death was a lie, and someone in this house knew the truth. Selena didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her borrowed bedroom with the photograph clutched in her shaking hands, staring at her mother's face until the image blurred and her eyes burned. Her mother had been here, at the Luciano estate, 3 days before the car accident that killed her. The accident that everyone said was just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. A drunk driver running a red light at 2 a.m, but now Selena held proof that it was something else. Someone had connected her mother to this family. Someone had left these documents for her to find, and someone was watching to see what she'd do next. By the time dawn crept through the windows, Selena had made a decision. She was going to find out what really happened, even if it destroyed her. At 7 a.m, Maria knocked on the door with breakfast. "Mr. Luciano wants to see you in his office at 9, she said, while setting down a tray of coffee and pastries that Selena couldn't even look at without her stomach turning. "Why? He didn't say, ma'am." Of course he didn't. Selena forced herself to shower and dress in clothes that felt like a costume. Dark jeans, simple black sweater. She pulled her hair back and stared at her reflection. She looked tired, haunted. Good. Let them see it. At 9 o'clock sharp, she walked to Damien's office and knocked once. "Come in." He was sitting behind his desk reviewing documents on his laptop. He didn't look up when she entered, just gestured toward one of the leather chairs across from him. "Sit." Selena stayed standing. "What do you want?" Damien finally looked up. His eyes narrowed slightly when he saw her face. "You look like hell." "Thanks. That's very romantic." "I'm not trying to be romantic." He closed the laptop. "I'm trying to figure out why you look like you've been crying all night." "Maybe because I married a stranger and got thrown into a house full of people who hate me." "They don't hate you. They just don't trust you yet." "What's the difference?" Damien leaned back in his chair. "Hate is personal. Distrust is professional." Selena laughed bitterly. "Everything with you is business, isn't it?" "Yes." At least he was honest. Selena crossed her arms. "Why did you want to see me?" "We need to discuss your role here." "My role? You mean the decorative wife who stays quiet and looks pretty?" "No, I mean the woman who's now connected to one of the most powerful crime families in the country, whether she likes it or not." Damien stood and walked around the desk. "You have 2 options, Selena. You can hide in your room and let Isabella and the others treat you like a joke. Or you can learn how this world works and earn their respect." "I don't want their respect." "Then you won't survive." The words landed like a punch. Selena met his gaze. "Is that a threat?" "It's reality." Damien stopped a few feet away from her. "This family has enemies. Lots of them. And now you're a target. So either you learn to protect yourself or you become a liability. And I don't keep liabilities." "Then let me leave." "Can't do that." "Why not?" "Because leaving makes both of us look weak. And weakness gets people killed in this world." Selena felt her temper flare. "So I'm stuck here. Forever. Until I say otherwise." "You really are a monster." Damien's expression didn't change. "You've said that before. Repeating it doesn't make it less true or more interesting." Selena wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to hurt him the way he was hurting her with his cold, calculated indifference. Instead, she said, "I found something last night." That got his attention. "What did you find?" Selena pulled the photograph from her pocket and held it up. "This. My mother, standing outside this house 3 days before she died." Damien went very still. "Where did you get that?" "Someone left it in my room. along with medical records showing she was treated by your family doctor 2 weeks before the accident. Let me see. Selena handed him the photograph. He studied it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Did you know? Selena asked quietly. Did you know my mother came here? No? You're lying. Damien looked up sharply. I don't lie about things that matter. Then what do you lie about? Things that don't. He set the photograph on his desk and picked up his phone. Marco, I need you in my office, now. He hung up without waiting for a response. Selena's heart pounded. What are you doing? Finding out who left this in your room. Why would Marco know? Because he's head of security. Nothing happens in this house without his knowledge. 2 minutes later, the office door opened. A man in his early 30s walked in. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair slicked back. He looked like a younger, meaner version of Damien. This was Marco Luciano, the cousin who'd stolen Evelyn. He smiled when he saw Selena. Well, the replacement bride. How's married life treating you? Marco, Damien said flatly. Shut up and look at this. He handed Marco the photograph. Marco's smile faded. Where did you get this? Someone left it in Selena's room last night. Marco studied the photograph carefully. This is Elena Vale, Selena's mother. I know who it is. I want to know who put it there. Could be anyone. Staff, family. Hell, could be Isabella playing games again. Damien's jaw tightened. Pull the hallway footage from last night. Every camera between the east wing and the service entrances. That's going to take hours. Then start now. Marco hesitated. You really think this matters? Yes. Why? Damien glanced at Selena. Because Elena Vale died 3 days after this photo was taken. And if someone in this house knew she was here, they might know why. Marco's expression shifted. Something darker flickered across his face. You think this was a hit? I think someone wants me to think it was a hit. What's the difference? Intent. Marco pocketed the photograph. I'll pull the footage, but Damien, if this was a hit and if someone in the family ordered it, then we have a bigger problem than a runaway bride. Marco left without another word. Selena stood frozen in the middle of the office, her mind racing. You think someone in your family killed my mother, she said quietly. Damien picked up his laptop and opened a file. I think someone wants you to believe that, which means they're either telling the truth or they're trying to manipulate you. Why would they manipulate me? To turn you against me, to make you unstable, to create leverage. He glanced up. Take your pick. Selena's hands clenched into fists. This is my mother we're talking about, not some chess piece in your power games. I know. Do you? Because you sound pretty fucking calm for someone who just found out his family might have murdered his wife's mother. Damien closed the laptop slowly. Selena, I spent the last 6 months investigating your family. I know things about your father's debts, your sister's affair, and your mother's death that you probably don't. So yes, I'm calm, because I've already considered this possibility. The words hit her like ice water. You investigated my mother's death? I investigated everything. And you didn't tell me? I didn't marry you to share information. I married you to gain an advantage. Selena felt something inside her snap. You really are a bastard. Yes. And you don't care that you're destroying me. Damien stood and walked toward her. I care that you're alive. Everything else is negotiable. He stopped inches away from her, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his eyebrow, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath. Your mother came to this house 3 days before she died, Damien said quietly. She met with someone. She received treatment from our family doctor for injuries that were never explained. And then she died in a car accident that was ruled accidental despite several inconsistencies in the police report. Selena's breath caught. What inconsistencies? Her blood alcohol level was 0. She wasn't speeding, and the other driver disappeared before police arrived. How do you know all this? Because I had the case reopened 6 months ago. Selena stared at him. Why? Because your father owed the wrong people money, and I needed to know if his family was worth the risk. So you used my mother's death as background research? Yes. The honesty was brutal. Selena turned away before he could see the tears burning in her eyes. Get out. This is my office. Then I'll leave. She walked toward the door. Selena. She stopped but didn't turn around. I know you hate me right now, Damien said, but someone in this house is playing a game. And until I figure out who and why, you need to stay close for your own safety. I don't need your protection. Yes, you do. Selena left without another word. But she spent the rest of the morning walking through the Luciano estate like a ghost. Every hallway felt like a trap. Every door might hide secrets. Every person she passed could be the one who killed her mother. By noon, Selena ended up in the library. It was quiet, empty. The kind of place where she could breathe without feeling like someone was watching her every move. She pulled a book off the shelf without looking at the title and sank into one of the leather chairs near the window. But she couldn't focus on the words. All she could think about was her mother. Elena Vale had been a violinist, a beautiful, talented woman who'd married Selena's father when she was 23 and spent the next 15 years slowly disappearing into herself. Selena remembered her mother practicing violin late at night when she thought everyone was asleep. Remembered the way the music sounded both heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. Remembered the way her mother would smile at her and say, "Music is the only honest thing in this world, baby girl. Everything else is pretend." 3 years ago, Elena Vale died in a car accident. The funeral had been small, quick. Her father had refused to talk about it beyond the basic facts, and Margaret, who'd married Selena's father 6 months after Elena's death, had immediately started erasing every trace of her predecessor from the house. Photographs disappeared. Elena's violin was locked in storage. Her name became something nobody mentioned. Now Selena understood why. Because someone had killed her, and someone had covered it up. The library door opened. Selena looked up to see Isabella Luciano standing in the doorway, wearing a cream-colored pantsuit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I thought I might find you here," Isabella said. Selena set down the book. "Did you need something? Just checking on our newest family member." Isabella walked into the library with the kind of grace that came from decades of practice. "You left breakfast untouched, and you missed lunch. Maria is worried." "Tell Maria I'm fine." "Are you? Does it matter?" Isabella's smile sharpened. "Of course it matters. You're Damien's wife now, which means your well-being reflects on this family. I'm not a reflection. I'm a person. In this world, dear, you're both." Isabella sat down in the chair across from Selena. She moved like a queen settling onto a throne. "I wanted to apologize for last night," Isabella said. "The family can be harsh with outsiders." "They weren't harsh. They were cruel. Cruelty is how we test people. The weak break. The strong survive." Selena met her gaze. "And which one am I?" "I haven't decided yet." The honesty was almost refreshing. Isabella crossed her legs elegantly. "I knew your mother, you know." Selena's heart stopped. "What?" "Elena Vale. She came here once, years ago." "When?" "Shortly before she died." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Why did she come here?" Selena asked carefully. Isabella's expression didn't change. "She wanted to speak with Damien's father about a debt your father owed." "What kind of debt?" "The kind that gets people killed if they don't pay it back." Selena's hands clenched around the arms of the chair. "Did you see her? The day she came here?" "Briefly. She seemed frightened." "Of what?" "I never asked." Isabella stood gracefully. "But I will tell you this, dear. Your mother made choices that had consequences, and sometimes those consequences catch up with the people left behind." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you should be careful. This house has a long memory." Isabella walked toward the door. "Mrs. Luciano," Selena called out. Isabella paused. "Did you have my mother killed?" Isabella turned slowly. Her expression was ice. "If I had, you wouldn't be here asking me that question." Then she left. Selena sat alone in the library with her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. Isabella had just admitted she knew about Elena Vale's visit, and she'd basically confirmed that it was connected to her death. But she'd also made it clear that if she'd ordered the hit, Selena would already be dead too, which meant someone else had killed Elena. Someone in this house. Someone who was still here. That night, Selena skipped dinner. She couldn't face the family, couldn't sit at that long table and pretend everything was fine while Isabella and the others smiled their cold smiles and picked her apart like vultures. Instead, she stayed in her room and tried to piece together what she knew. Her mother had come to the Luciano estate 3 days before she died. She'd met with Damien's father about a debt. She'd been treated by the family doctor for unexplained injuries. And then she died in a suspicious car accident. Someone had killed her, and someone had covered it up for 3 years. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "I don't want dinner," Selena called out. "It's not Maria." Damien's voice. Selena hesitated, then opened the door. He stood in the hallway wearing dark jeans and a black shirt. No suit, no armor. He looked almost human. Almost. "We need to talk," he said. We talked this morning." Marco found something. Selena's pulse jumped. What did he find? Security footage. From the night someone left that photograph in your room. He pulled out his phone and opened a video file. The footage showed the hallway outside Selena's room. Timestamp, 2:47 a.m. A figure appeared at the edge of the frame. They were wearing dark clothes and a hood that obscured their face. They moved quickly, placed something on the floor outside Selena's door, and disappeared back down the hallway. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. "Can you identify them?" Selena asked. "No, but I can tell you it wasn't staff. Staff uses the service corridors. This person came from the family wing." "So it was someone in your family?" "Yes." Damien pocketed his phone. "Which means whoever left that photograph wants you to know the truth about your mother. But they don't want to reveal themselves." "Why not?" "Because revealing themselves would be dangerous. Which means they're either afraid of someone in this house or they're playing a longer game." Selena's head spun. "This is insane." "Welcome to my world." She looked up at him. "Why are you helping me? I thought I was just useful." Damien's expression shifted slightly. Something almost vulnerable flickered across his face before disappearing behind his usual mask. "You're useful," he said, "but you're also my wife. And despite what you think, I don't let people hurt what's mine. I'm not a possession. In this world, everyone is a possession. The only question is who owns you." Selena felt her temper flare. "Nobody owns me. Your father sold you to pay his debts. Your stepmother forced you into this marriage, and now you're living in my house under my protection." Damien stepped closer. "So yes, Selena, someone owns you. The question is whether you're going to accept it or fight it." "I'll fight it." "Good. Because the people who accept ownership don't survive long in this family." He turned to leave. "Damien." He stopped. "My mother," Selena said quietly. "When she came here 3 years ago, did your father hurt her?" Damien was silent for a long moment. "I don't know," he finally said. "My father died 6 months after your mother did. But I can tell you this, he wasn't a good man. And if your mother came here asking for mercy, she wouldn't have found it." The words settled over Selena like a shroud. Damien left without another word. Selena stood alone in her borrowed room with the truth finally taking shape in her mind. Her mother had been killed by the Luciano family, and she'd just married into that same family. The trap had closed around her years ago. She'd just been too blind to see it. The next morning, Selena woke to shouting. She bolted upright in bed, heart pounding, trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. Down the hall. Multiple voices. Angry. Selena grabbed a robe and opened her door carefully. The shouting was coming from Damien's office. She crept down the hallway and pressed herself against the wall near the door. "Completely out of control!" A man's voice. Not Damien. "I'm handling it." That was Damien, cold, controlled. "Handling it? You married the wrong woman and now she's digging into shit that should stay buried." "She's my wife. She has a right to know the truth." "The truth?" A woman's voice now. "Isabella. The truth is dangerous for all of us." "Then maybe we shouldn't have killed her mother." Selena's breath caught. Silence from inside the office. Then Isabella spoke again, her voice sharp. "That was business. Elena Vale was a loose end." "She was an innocent woman," Damien said. "There are no innocent people in this world. You know that. I know that you ordered a hit without consulting me. You were 29 years old and too soft to make the hard calls, so I made them for you. Selena felt like she'd been punched in the chest. Isabella had killed her mother, not Damien's father, Isabella. And Damien had just found out. Get out, Damien said quietly. Excuse me? I said get out before I do something we'll both regret. Damien, now. Footsteps. The door opened. Selena barely managed to slip into a nearby alcove before Isabella emerged from the office. She looked furious. Her face was flushed, and her hands were clenched into fists. Behind her, another man followed. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit. They walked past Selena's hiding spot without noticing her. This is going to blow up in his face, the man muttered. Let it, Isabella said coldly. Damien needs to learn that sentiment is weakness. They disappeared down the hallway. Selena waited until she couldn't hear their footsteps anymore. Then she stepped out of the alcove and walked to Damien's office. The door was still open. Damien stood behind his desk with both hands pressed flat against the surface. His head was bowed. He looked like he was barely holding himself together. You heard, he said without looking up. It wasn't a question. Yes. Damien finally lifted his head. His eyes were cold and furious. Isabella ordered the hit on your mother. I didn't know until 30 seconds before you started listening at the door. Why did she do it? Because your mother knew something about money laundering, about offshore accounts, about illegal transactions that could have destroyed this family if they went public. How did my mother know? Your father. He was one of our accountants before he started his own firm. He had access to records, and he talked too much to the wrong person. Selena felt sick. So Isabella killed my mother to protect the family. Yes. And you had no idea? No, my father died before he could tell me, and Isabella covered it up. Selena walked into the office and closed the door behind her. What are you going to do? Damien's jaw tightened. I don't know. You don't know? Isabella is my stepmother. She helped raise me. She's been running half this empire for 20 years. If I move against her, I split the family, and a split family is a dead family in this world. So you're going to let her get away with murder? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Damien looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw something genuine in his eyes. Fear. Not for himself, for her. I'm saying that Isabella is dangerous, Damien said quietly. And now that she knows you know the truth, you're a threat. Then protect me. I'm trying. Try harder. Selena, no. She stepped closer to the desk. You married me because I was useful, because I was honest, because I was the safe option. Fine. But that means you owe me protection. Real protection. Not just empty words. Damien stared at her. Then he said something that changed everything. I'm falling in love with you. Selena froze. What? I didn't mean for it to happen, Damien continued. I married you for strategic reasons. I kept you close because you were valuable. But somewhere between the wedding and now, it stopped being strategy. He walked around the desk toward her. You're not decorative. You're not weak. You're stubborn and brave, and you played violin at dinner like you were declaring war. He stopped inches away from her. And I realized that I don't want to lose you. Selena's heart pounded. You're lying. I don't lie about things that matter. You said that before. I meant it then too. Selena didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think. This was the man who'd investigated her mother's death like it was a business transaction. The man who'd married her for advantage. The man who'd admitted he saw people as chess pieces. And now he was standing in front of her looking almost human, almost vulnerable. I don't believe you, Selena whispered. I know. You're trying to manipulate me. Probably. Then why should I trust anything you say? Damien's expression softened. Because I just told you that Isabella killed your mother, and that information could destroy this family if it goes public. I just gave you the most dangerous weapon you could possibly have against me. He was right. Selena could walk out of this house right now and go to the police. She could expose everything, destroy the Luciano empire, burn it all down. But she didn't move. Because part of her, a small, traitorous part, wanted to believe him. What do we do now? She asked quietly. We survive, Damien said. Together. And Isabella? I'll handle her. But I need you to trust me. I don't trust you. Then pretend until you figure out whether I'm telling the truth or playing another game. Selena looked into his eyes, those cold, dangerous, calculating eyes, and tried to find something real underneath. She couldn't, but she also couldn't walk away. Because Damien was right about one thing. In this world, survival required allies, even if those allies were monsters. Fine, Selena said. I'll pretend. Good. But if you're lying to me, you'll destroy me. I know. He smiled faintly. That's why I think I might actually love you, because you're the first person in years who isn't afraid to threaten me. Before Selena could respond, someone knocked on the door. Come in, Damien called out. Marco entered looking grim. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Evelyn Vale just posted on social media. She's claiming you kidnapped her sister and forced Selena into marriage. Selena's blood went cold. Marco held up his phone. The screen showed Evelyn's Instagram account. She was standing at what looked like an airport wearing sunglasses and expensive clothes. The caption read, "My sister was stolen from me. The truth will come out. Hashtag justice for Selena." The post had already been shared 10,000 times. Shit, Damien said quietly. Marco nodded. It gets worse. The media is picking it up. CNN, Fox, everyone. They're running with the story. What story? Mafia Boss forces wrong bride into marriage. It's trending on Twitter. Selena felt the room spin. This was a disaster, a public disaster, the kind that destroyed families and ended empires. We need to respond, Marco said. Fast. Damien's expression went cold and calculating. Schedule a press conference tomorrow morning at the estate. Are you sure that's... Do it! Marco hesitated, then nodded and left. Selena stared at Damien. What are you doing? Controlling the narrative before it controls us. By putting me in front of cameras? By showing the world that you're here by choice, not force. But I'm not... Selena, Damien's voice was sharp. Evelyn just declared war. And in this world, war is won by whoever tells the better story. So tomorrow morning, you're going to stand beside me and tell everyone that you married me because you wanted to. That's a lie. It's survival. It's manipulation. Welcome to my world. Selena wanted to scream, wanted to fight, wanted to refuse, but she couldn't because Evelyn had just turned her into a victim, a headline, a cautionary tale, and the only way to survive was to rewrite the story, even if it meant lying to the entire world. Fine, Selena said. I'll do the press conference. Good. But after this is over, you're going to tell me everything about my mother, about Isabella, about every secret in this house. Damien studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Deal. Selena left the office before she could change her mind. Plus, the press conference was held at 10 o'clock the next morning in the Luciano Estate's main ballroom. Selena stood backstage wearing a tailored navy dress that Maria had picked out. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like the kind of woman who belonged in this world. She felt like she was about to throw up. Through the curtain, she could hear reporters gathering, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Cameras clicking, voices murmuring, the sound of a feeding frenzy. Damien stood beside her wearing a black suit. He looked calm, unbothered, like he did this every day. Maybe he did. Remember what we talked about, he said quietly. Selena nodded. They'd spent the last 18 hours rehearsing her answers, practicing her delivery, making sure every word sounded natural even though it was completely scripted. Yes, I married Damien by choice. No, I wasn't forced into anything. My sister is confused and upset, but I hope she finds peace. Lies. All of it, but necessary lies. Ready? Damien asked. No. Too bad. He pushed through the curtain and walked onto the stage. The ballroom erupted in camera flashes. Selena took a deep breath and followed him. The lights were blinding. The noise was overwhelming. She could barely see the reporters' faces beyond the first few rows. Damien stepped up to the podium. Thank you all for coming. I'll make a brief statement, then we'll take a few questions. He cleared his throat. Yesterday, false allegations were made about my marriage to Selena Vale. I'm here to set the record straight. Selena and I were married 3 days ago in a ceremony attended by family and friends. The marriage was consensual, legal, and completely voluntary. Reporters shouted questions. Damien ignored them. Evelyn Vale, Selena's sister, was originally supposed to marry me, but she chose to leave before the wedding. Selena stepped in to honor the agreement between our families. It was her choice, and I'm grateful she made it. More shouting, more camera flashes. Now I'd like to introduce my wife, Selena Luciano. He stepped back from the podium. Selena forced herself to walk forward. Every eye in the room locked onto her. She gripped the podium to keep her hands from shaking. "Thank you for being here," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about my marriage, so I want to be clear. I married Damien Luciano because I chose to. Lie. My sister and I have had a complicated relationship for years. Her decision to leave before the wedding was difficult for everyone, but it was her choice, just like marrying Damien was mine. Lie. I'm not a victim. I'm not being held against my will. I'm exactly where I want to be. The biggest lie of all." A reporter raised her hand. "Miss Vale, sorry, Mrs. Luciano, your sister claims you were forced into this marriage to pay your father's debts. Is that true?" Selena's heart pounded. "My father's business arrangements are private," she said carefully. "But my marriage isn't a transaction. It's a partnership." Another reporter shouted a question. "There are rumors that the Luciano family is under federal investigation. Did you marry into this family knowing about their criminal connections?" Damien stepped forward smoothly. "This press conference is about my marriage, not unsubstantiated rumors." Next question. A third reporter stood. "Mrs. Luciano, do you love your husband?" The room went silent. Everyone waited for her answer. Selena looked at Damien. He looked back at her with those cold, unreadable eyes. She thought about her mother, about Isabella, about every secret buried in this house. She thought about the photograph, the medical records, the cover-up that had lasted 3 years. She thought about Damien telling her he was falling in love with her, and she thought about the fact that she might actually believe him. "Yes," Selena heard herself say. "I love him." The lie slipped out so easily it scared her, because part of her wondered if it was actually true. The press conference ended shortly after that. Damien fielded a few more questions, then security ushered the reporters out. Selena stood on the stage feeling like she'd just sold her soul. Damien walked over to her. "You did well. I lied to everyone. You survived. There's a difference." Selena looked at him. "When does the lying stop?" "Never. That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Before Selena could respond, Marco appeared at the edge of the stage. "Damien, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Your brother just arrived, and he brought someone with him." Damien's expression went cold. "Who?" "Evelyn Vale." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Selena's sister was here, at the Luciano estate, with Damien's brother. This wasn't just a media war anymore. This was about to become a bloodbath. And Selena was standing right in the middle of it. Evelyn Vale walked into the Luciano estate like she owned it. She wore a white dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a magazine cover come to life. And she was smiling. That smile made Selena's stomach turn. Behind Evelyn walked a man Selena had never seen before. Tall, dark hair. Sharp features that looked eerily similar to Damien's. He moved with the same predatory confidence, the same barely controlled violence wrapped in expensive clothes. This had to be Damien's brother, the one nobody talked about, the one who'd apparently been working with Marco to steal Evelyn in the first place. Selena stood frozen on the stage while Damien's entire body went rigid beside her. "Vincent," Damien said quietly. The name came out like a curse. Vincent Luciano smiled. It was cold and sharp and nothing like his brother's rare attempts at warmth. "Hello, Damien. Miss me?" "What are you doing here?" "Bringing back what belongs to you." Vincent gestured toward Evelyn like she was a package he'd delivered. "Your runaway bride. Thought you might want her back." Evelyn's smile widened. "Hello, husband." She was looking at Damien when she said it. not Selena. The implication landed like a bomb. Damien's jaw tightened. You're not my wife, she is. He gestured towards Selena. Oh, I know. Evelyn's gaze slid towards Selena. My poor little sister, always cleaning up everyone else's messes. Selena felt rage flood through her veins. You abandoned him. I didn't take anything from you. Didn't you? Evelyn stepped closer. You put on my dress, said my vows, took my place like you've been waiting your whole life for me to fail. That's not... You always wanted what I had, Selena. The attention, the opportunities, the life. And the second I left, you jumped at the chance to replace me. The words were poison wrapped in silk. Selena's hands clenched into fists. You ran away with Marco. You chose this. I chose freedom. You chose imprisonment. Evelyn looked around the ballroom with mock sympathy. How's married life treating you? Enjoying being owned by a monster? Damien stepped between them. Enough. Vincent, get her out of here. Vincent laughed. Come on, brother. Don't you want to hear why I brought her back? No. Too bad, because this affects all of us. Vincent pulled out his phone and held it up. The screen showed a video file. He pressed play. The video showed Damien's office. The camera angle was high, probably from a security camera. The footage was from earlier that morning, before the press conference. Selena watched herself walk into frame, watched Damien tell her about Isabella killing her mother, watched herself threaten to destroy the family, watched Damien tell her he was falling in love with her, every private moment, every vulnerable confession, every secret, all recorded, all weaponized. Where did you get that? Damien's voice was deadly quiet. Vincent grinned. I have access to everything in this house, brother. You know that. Those are encrypted files. And I know all your passwords. Damien lunged forward so fast Selena barely saw him move. He grabbed Vincent by the throat and slammed him against the nearest wall hard enough to crack the plaster. You've been spying on me! Vincent wheezed, but kept smiling. For months. Ever since you decided to marry into the Vale family without consulting the rest of us. I don't need to consult anyone. I'm the head of this family. Are you? Vincent's smile turned vicious. Because from where I'm standing, you look weak, distracted, in love with a woman who's going to destroy everything Dad built. Damien's grip tightened. Say that again. You heard me? You're weak, Damien, and weak leaders get replaced. Security guards burst into the ballroom, 6 of them, all armed, but they didn't move toward Vincent. They moved toward Damien. Selena's blood went cold. What is this? Damien asked quietly. Marco stepped through the doorway behind the guards. He looked calm, almost apologetic. I'm sorry, Damien, Marco said, but Vincent's right. You've become a liability. Damien released Vincent and turned slowly to face Marco. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake. When you married her, Marco pointed at Selena. When you started caring more about one woman than the entire organization. When you forgot what this family stands for. I know exactly what this family stands for. Then you know we can't have a leader who's compromised. I'm not compromised. You told her Isabella killed her mother. You gave her evidence that could destroy us. You fell in love with the enemy. Marco's expression hardened. That's the definition of compromised. Selena's mind raced. This was a coup. Vincent and Marco had planned this. They'd used Evelyn as bait to get both Damien and Selena in the same room, and now they were taking over. Where's Isabella? Damien asked. Safe, Vincent said. He was rubbing his throat but still smiling. Don't worry, she's on our side. Of course she was. Isabella had killed Selena's mother to protect the family, and now she was backing Vincent and Marco to remove Damien because he'd become too soft, too human, too vulnerable. Damien looked at the guards. You're really going to do this? After everything I've done for this family? The guards didn't respond. They just kept their guns trained on him. Take him to the vault, Vincent ordered. 2 guards moved toward Damien. Selena stepped forward without thinking. Wait. One of the guards grabbed her arm and yanked her back. Don't touch her, Damien said. His voice was low and dangerous. Or what? Vincent stepped closer. You're not in charge anymore, brother. I am. The guards forced Damien toward the doorway. He didn't fight, didn't struggle. He He just looked at Selena with an expression she couldn't read. Then they dragged him out of the ballroom. Selena tried to follow, but the guard tightened his grip on her arm. "Let me go." Vincent waved his hand. "Take her to the East Wing. Lock the door. She doesn't leave until I say so." "What?" Selena struggled against the guard's grip. "You can't—" "I can do whatever I want. This is my house now." The guard pulled Selena toward the exit. She saw Evelyn watching with that same cold smile, and she understood. This had been the plan all along. Evelyn hadn't run away because she was scared. She'd run away because she was working with Vincent and Marco. They'd used the wedding chaos to create instability, used the media coverage to make Damien look weak, used Selena's investigation into her mother's death to prove Damien was compromised. And now they were taking over. Selena was dragged back to her room in the East Wing. The door slammed shut behind her. She heard a lock click. She was a prisoner. Again. Hours passed. Selena paced the room like a caged animal. She tried the door a dozen times, tried the windows, tried screaming for help. Nothing worked. The sun set. The room grew dark. Finally, around midnight, the door opened. Isabella Luciano walked in wearing a black pantsuit. She looked calm, composed, completely in control. "Hello, dear," she said. Selena's rage exploded. "You killed my mother!" "Yes." The casual admission was worse than denial. "Why?" Selena demanded. "Because she was going to expose us. Your father had been stealing from the family for years, small amounts, nothing catastrophic. But your mother found out and threatened to go to the authorities unless we forgave his debts." Isabella sat down in one of the chairs like they were having tea. "We couldn't allow that, so I arranged for her accident. You're a monster." "I'm a survivor. There's a difference." Selena wanted to launch herself across the room and strangle this woman with her bare hands. "And now you're doing the same thing to Damien. Damien brought this on himself. He fell in love with you, started caring more about your feelings than the family's interests. That kind of weakness gets people killed in our world. He's your stepson. And Vincent is my blood nephew. Family isn't just about DNA, dear. It's about loyalty. And Damien stopped being loyal the moment he chose you over us." Selena's throat tightened. "What are you going to do to him?" "That depends on him. If he agrees to step down peacefully, he'll be allowed to leave with his life in a generous settlement. If he fights—" Isabella shrugged. "Well, accidents happen. You'd kill him." "I'd do what's necessary to protect this family." "You're insane." Isabella smiled. "Perhaps, but I'm also very good at what I do." She stood gracefully. "Vincent wants to speak with you tomorrow morning. I suggest you cooperate. The alternative would be unpleasant." She left. The door locked again. Selena sank onto the bed with her heart pounding. Damien was somewhere in this house. Probably locked up. Probably being tortured or threatened or worse. And she was trapped here, unable to help him. Unable to do anything. For the first time since this nightmare began, Selena felt truly helpless. Morning came too fast. Maria arrived with breakfast and a change of clothes. She wouldn't meet Selena's eyes. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Maria whispered. "I don't have a choice." "Where's Damien?" "I don't know." "Is he alive?" Maria's silence was answer enough. Selena's blood ran cold. "What did they do to him?" "Please, ma'am, just get dressed. Mr. Vincent is waiting." Selena wanted to refuse, wanted to fight. But Maria looked terrified, and causing trouble for her wouldn't help anyone. So Selena got dressed in the clothes Maria had brought. Dark pants, simple blouse, nothing fancy, prisoner clothes. Maria led her downstairs to the dining hall. The long table had been cleared except for 2 place settings at opposite ends. Vincent sat at the head wearing a suit that probably cost more than Selena's childhood home. He was eating eggs and reading something on his tablet like this was just another Tuesday. "Sit," he said without looking up. Selena sat at the far end of the table. Vincent finished his eggs before speaking. "I'm going to make this simple. You have 2 choices." "I'm listening." "Choice 1, you publicly announce that your marriage to Damien was a mistake. You file for divorce. You return to your family and never speak about the Lucianos again. In exchange, we pay off your father's debts and ensure your brother finishes medical school." Selena's jaw tightened. "And choice 2? Vincent finally looked up. His eyes were cold and empty. You stay married to Damien, in which case we kill your brother, then your father, then you, and Damien gets to watch all of it before we kill him too. The threat landed like a physical blow. Selena forced herself to keep breathing. You'd kill your own brother? I'd remove a threat to this family. Damien stopped being my brother the moment he chose you over us. You're insane, Vincent smiled. I'm practical. There's a difference. He stood and walked toward her end of the table. Each step felt deliberate, calculated, predatory. Your mother made the same mistake, Vincent said quietly. She thought she could threaten this family and survive. She was wrong. Selena's hands clenched under the table. My mother was innocent. Nobody's innocent. Your father was stealing from us. Your mother knew and tried to use it as leverage. That's not innocence. That's stupidity. So you killed her. Isabella killed her, but I approved it. I was 18 and already helping run this organization. Vincent stopped right behind Selena's chair. Want to know something interesting? I was there the night she died. Selena's blood turned to ice. I watched the whole thing. The car accident was quick, professional. She probably didn't even see it coming. Vincent leaned down close to her ear. But she knew. In those last few seconds, she knew exactly why it was happening. Selena couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think. Vincent straightened and walked back toward his end of the table. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to choose option 1. You're going to divorce my brother. And you're going to disappear quietly. And if I don't, then I start killing people you love, starting with Noah. Selena's vision blurred with rage. Don't you dare touch my brother. Then give me what I want. I want to see Damien first. Vincent considered this. Fine. But you get 5 minutes, and you're going to convince him to step down peacefully, because if he fights this, everyone dies, including you. They took her to the vault. It was exactly what it sounded like. A reinforced room deep in the mansion's basement designed to hold valuables, or prisoners. 2 guards opened the heavy steel door. Inside, Damien sat on a metal chair with his hands cuffed behind him. His face was bruised, blood crusted on his lip. His shirt was torn, but his eyes were still sharp and furious when they met Selena's. You have 5 minutes, one of the guards said. They closed the door but stayed outside. Selena rushed forward and dropped to her knees in front of Damien. Are you okay? I've been better. What did they do to you? Nothing I haven't survived before. Selena's hands shook as she reached up to touch his face. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. No, this is Vincent's fault, and Marco's, and Isabella's. Damien's expression softened slightly. You didn't do anything wrong. I investigated my mother's death. I gave them ammunition against you. You deserve to know the truth. Tears burned in Selena's eyes. Vincent said if I don't divorce you and disappear, he'll kill Noah, then my father, then me, then you. Damien went very still. He's serious. I know. Then you need to do what he says. What? Divorce me, leave, protect your family. Selena stared at him. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about keeping people alive. I'm not abandoning you. Yes, you are. Damien leaned forward as much as the cuffs would allow. Listen to me, Selena. This isn't your fight. It never was. You got dragged into my world and I should have protected you better, but I didn't. So now you're going to walk away before Vincent kills everyone you love. What about you? I'll figure something out. That's not good enough. It has to be. Selena grabbed his face with both hands. I'm not leaving you here to die. You don't have a choice. Yes, I do. I always have a choice. Something shifted in Damien's expression. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Vincent made a mistake. What mistake? He told me everything. About my mother, about how this family operates, about how they kill anyone who threatens them. Selena's voice dropped to a whisper. And he told me while we're still married, which means I have legal standing as your wife. Damien's eyes widened slightly. You're going public. I'm burning this whole empire to the ground. Selena, they killed my mother. They tortured you. They threatened my brother. Her voice shook with fury. I don't care if it destroys me. I'm taking all of them down. If you do that, You'll become a target for every enemy this family has ever made. You'll spend the rest of your life running. Then I'll run. You'll never be safe. I'm not safe now. Damien stared at her. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked genuinely afraid. I can't protect you if you do this. I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you to trust me. I do trust you. That's the problem. The door opened. Time's up, the guard said. Selena stood slowly. She looked down at Damien one last time. I love you, she said. The words came out clear and certain, not a lie this time, not strategy, just truth. Damien's expression cracked. Selena, I know you think you don't deserve it, and maybe you don't, but I'm saying it anyway because I need you to know that this isn't about strategy anymore. It's not about survival. It's about choosing you even when it's the stupidest thing I could possibly do. She leaned down and kissed him, quick, fierce, final. Then she turned and walked out of the vault before he could respond. The guards locked the door behind her. Vincent was waiting in the hallway. Did you convince him to step down? No. Vincent's expression darkened. Then we have a problem. Yes, you do. Excuse me? Selena looked him dead in the eye. I'm going to the FBI. I'm going to tell them everything about Isabella killing my mother, about the money laundering, about every illegal thing this family has done for the last 20 years, and I'm going to make sure all of you spend the rest of your lives in prison. Vincent laughed. You're bluffing. Try me. His smile faded. You realize that means you'll go down too. You're married to Damien. You're part of this family now. The FBI will investigate you just as thoroughly. I don't care. Your brother will lose everything. Your father will be arrested. Your entire family will be destroyed. Then that's the price. Vincent stepped closer. His voice dropped to something dangerous. I will kill you right here, right now. Then do it, because the files are already uploaded to a cloud server with instructions to send them to every major news organization if I don't check in every 12 hours. Kill me, and you speed up your own destruction. It was a bluff, a complete and total bluff. But Selena said it with enough conviction that Vincent hesitated. You're insane, he said finally. No, I'm done being scared of people like you. Vincent's jaw tightened. You just declared war on the most powerful crime family in New York. Good. Let's see who wins. Vincent grabbed her arm so hard she gasped. You're going to regret this. I already regret marrying into this nightmare. Everything else is just details. He shoved her toward the guards. Lock her back in her room and get Isabella. We need to handle this before it explodes. They dragged Selena back upstairs. But this time she wasn't helpless. This time she had a plan. It was reckless, dangerous, probably suicidal, but it was hers. And for the first time since this disaster began, Selena felt like she was the one in control. Back in her room, Selena waited until the guards left. Then she pulled out her phone. It had been hidden in her clothes. They'd searched her when they first locked her up, but Maria must have smuggled it back somehow. Selena's hands shook as she opened her contacts. She found the number she needed. A journalist. Someone who'd been trying to interview her for weeks after the wedding went public. She typed out a message. I have proof that the Luciano family murdered my mother. Meet me tomorrow at noon. Central Park. Come alone, or I disappear forever. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she deleted the message and powered off the phone. If Vincent's people were monitoring her communications, she'd just given them everything they needed to kill her. But if they weren't monitoring her closely enough, she'd just created her escape route. Either way, tomorrow would be the end of this, one way or another. Selena lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her mother, about the photograph, about that last moment before the car accident when Elena Vale realized she was going to die. She thought about Damien locked in the vault with bruises on his face and blood on his lip. She thought about Noah finishing medical school with no idea his sister was about to destroy their entire family to take down a crime syndicate. And she thought about the fact that she'd just told Damien she loved him. It was the truth. She didn't know when it had happened, didn't know how someone could fall in love with a monster who investigated her mother's death and married her for strategy. But somewhere between the wedding and now, she'd stopped seeing him as the enemy. She'd started seeing him as the only person in this house who'd ever been honest with her, Even when that honesty was brutal, Selena closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, she was going to war, and she had no idea if she'd survive it. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't the backup bride anymore. She wasn't the replacement. She wasn't the girl who apologized for existing. She was Selena Luciano. And she was done playing by their rules. The wrong bride was about to become the most dangerous woman in New York. Selena didn't sleep. She lay in the dark with her phone hidden under her pillow and her mind racing through every possible outcome of what she'd just done. If the journalist showed up, she had a chance. If Vincent's people intercepted the message, she was dead. Those were the only two possibilities. At 3 a.m, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Selena sat up slowly, heart hammering. The footsteps stopped outside her door. She held her breath. A key turned in the lock. The door opened. Maria slipped inside, carrying something wrapped in dark cloth. She closed the door quietly behind her and turned to face Selena. "We don't have much time," Maria whispered. Selena's pulse jumped. "What are you doing?" "Getting you out of here." Maria unwrapped the cloth to reveal a security guard uniform. "Put this on." "Why are you helping me?" "Because I watched them beat Mr. Damien for 3 hours yesterday, and I'm done pretending this family deserves my loyalty." Selena grabbed the uniform with shaking hands. "Where is he now?" "Still in the vault, but they're moving him tomorrow morning, taking him somewhere outside the city." Maria's voice cracked. "If you don't get out tonight and get help, he's dead by tomorrow night." Selena changed into the uniform as fast as her trembling fingers would allow. The clothes smelled like cigarettes and cheap cologne. The boots were too big, but it would work. "There's a service exit on the ground floor," Maria said. "East side of the mansion. It's only guarded between midnight and 2 a.m. After that, the guards rotate to the front gates." "What about cameras?" "I shut down the East Wing surveillance for maintenance. You have a 15-minute window starting now." Selena grabbed Maria's shoulders. "Why are you doing this? If they find out, they'll kill me. I know." Maria's eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. "But your mother used to tip me extra every time she visited. She was kind, and kindness is rare in this house." Selena's throat tightened. "My mother visited more than once?" "3 times. She was trying to negotiate your father's release from his contract with the family. Isabella refused every time." Maria pulled an envelope from her pocket. "She left this for you. I was supposed to destroy it, but I couldn't." Selena took the envelope with shaking hands, her mother's handwriting on the front. "For Selena, when she's ready to know the truth." "I can't read this now." "Then take it with you." Maria pushed her toward the door. "Go, before the guards come back." Selena hugged her quickly. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just survive." Maria opened the door and checked the hallway. Empty. She gestured for Selena to follow. They moved through the mansion like ghosts. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like gunfire in the silence. They reached the service stairwell. Maria stopped at the top. "Down 3 flights, turn left. The exit is at the end of the corridor. The door code is 7283. "What about you?" "I'm going back to my quarters. If anyone asks, I was asleep all night." Selena squeezed her hand once. "If I make it out of this alive, I'm getting you out too. If you make it out alive, don't come back." Maria disappeared back up the stairs. Selena descended into the basement alone. The service corridors were narrow and cold. Concrete floors. Exposed pipes. The smell of mildew and industrial cleaner. She moved as quickly as she dared. The envelope in her pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She reached the exit door and punched in the code Maria had given her. 7283. The lock clicked. Selena pushed the door open and stepped out into the night air. Freedom hit her like a physical force. She was outside, away from the guards, away from Vincent and Isabella and Marco. But Damien was still trapped in that vault, and she had less than 12 hours to save him. Selena ran. She made it to the main road and flagged down a taxi just as dawn started bleeding across the horizon. "Where to?" the driver asked. Selena gave him an address in Lower Manhattan, a coffee shop she'd seen on the news once. Busy, public, safe. She sat in the back seat with her heart still racing and her hands still shaking. The envelope burned in her pocket. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. Selena tore open the envelope and pulled out a letter written in her mother's careful script. My darling Selena, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. And it means the Luciano family probably had something to do with it. I'm so sorry to leave you like this, sorry to burden you with the truth, but you deserve to know why this happened. Your father made terrible choices. He stole money from the Lucianos to cover gambling debts. When I found out, I tried to fix it. I went to their estate 3 times to negotiate his release from their contracts. Isabella Luciano refused every time. She said your father's debt would be paid one way or another, either with money or with service. I threatened to go to the authorities, threatened to expose their entire operation. That was my mistake. 2 days later, I started receiving threats, anonymous calls, photos of you and Noah taken from outside your school, messages telling me to stay quiet or watch my children suffer. I was terrified, so I went to Damian Luciano's father and begged him to protect you, to leave you out of whatever happened next. He agreed, but only if I disappeared quietly. That's when I realized they were going to kill me. I tried to run, tried to take you and Noah and disappear, but your father wouldn't leave. He said running would make it worse. So I made a different choice. I documented everything, every meeting with Isabella, every threat, every transaction. And I hid that evidence where only you would think to look. In my violin case, the one I kept in storage. The combination to the storage unit is your birthday. The evidence is in the hidden compartment beneath the velvet lining. If you're reading this, it means you've married into the Luciano family somehow. It means you're in danger. Take that evidence to the FBI. Burn this family to the ground, and don't look back. I love you more than music, more than life, more than anything in this broken world. Survive, baby girl. That's all I ever wanted for you, Mom. Selena's vision blurred with tears. Her mother had known. She'd documented everything. She'd left Selena the weapon she needed to destroy the Lucianos, and it had been sitting in a storage unit for 3 years. Miss? The taxi driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You okay? Selena wiped her eyes. Change of plans. I need to go to Queens, Long Island City. There's a storage facility on Vernon Boulevard. That's going to cost extra. I don't care. Just drive. The storage facility was exactly as Selena remembered it. Gray concrete building, rolling metal doors, a board attendant who barely looked up when she entered. I need access to Unit 247, Selena said. ID? Selena froze. She didn't have ID. She'd left everything at the Luciano estate. I'm Elena Vale's daughter. The unit is under her name. The attendant squinted at her. She's been dead for like 3 years. I know. I'm here to clear out her things. I need to see proof of death certificate and inheritance documents. I don't have those with me. Then I can't let you in. Selena's temper flared. Listen, my mother died and left me evidence that could take down one of the biggest crime families in New York. I need to get into that unit right now or people are going to die. So either you let me in or I'm breaking down that door myself. The attendant stared at her. Then he picked up his phone. I'm calling the cops. Selena grabbed the phone out of his hand and slammed it down. You call the cops, and the Luciano family will know where I am within 5 minutes. And then we're both dead. You're crazy. I'm desperate. There's a difference. She pulled out the last thing she had that might work. Her wedding ring. This is worth $50,000. It's yours if you give me 10 minutes in that unit. The attendant looked at the ring, looked at Selena, looked at the ring again. 15 minutes, and I'm keeping this door locked behind you. Deal. He took the ring and led her down the hallway to Unit 247. Her birthday on the lock. Oh, 614. Selena's hand shook as she entered the combination. The lock clicked open. Inside the unit was exactly as her mother had left it. Boxes of old clothes, photo albums, sheet music, and in the corner, covered with a dusty cloth, her mother's violin case. Selena pulled off the cloth and opened the case with trembling fingers. The violin was still beautiful, still perfect. She lifted it carefully and felt underneath the velvet lining for the hidden compartment her mother had mentioned. There. A small catch. Selena pressed it, and the bottom of the case popped open. Inside was a USB drive. That was it. 3 years of evidence, 3 years of secrets, 3 years of ammunition against the Luciano family, all on one tiny piece of plastic. Selena grabbed it and closed the violin case. She had what she needed. Now she just had to survive long enough to use it. By 9 in the morning, Selena was sitting in a Starbucks in Midtown with a borrowed laptop and enough coffee to kill a small horse. She plugged in the USB drive. Files appeared on the screen, hundreds of them. Bank statements, email transcripts, recorded phone calls, photographs of meetings between Isabella Luciano and corrupt politicians, footage of money being transferred through shell corporations. And at the center of it all, a detailed document outlining how the Luciano family had been laundering money for 3 decades through construction contracts, union kickbacks, and offshore accounts. Her mother had been thorough, obsessively thorough. This was enough to bring down the entire organization. Selena's phone buzzed. A text from the journalist. "I'm here. Where are you?" Selena checked the time. 11:45. She grabbed the laptop and headed for Central Park. The journalist's name was Rachel Kim. She was in her mid-30s with sharp eyes and a recording device already running when Selena sat down on the bench beside her. "You're Selena Luciano," Rachel said. Not a question. "Yes." "You look terrible." "I escaped from a crime family's mansion at 3 in the morning. I'm doing pretty well considering." Rachel's expression sharpened. "You said you have proof they murdered your mother." "I have more than that." Selena opened the laptop. "I have 3 years' worth of evidence documenting every illegal operation the Luciano family runs." She turned the screen toward Rachel. Rachel's eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. "Holy shit." That's one way to put it. This is Pulitzer-level stuff. Where did you get this?" "My mother. She documented everything before they killed her." Selena's voice cracked. "I'm giving it to you on one condition." "What condition?" "You publish it immediately. Today. Right now. Before the Lucianos have time to cover it up or kill anyone else." Rachel looked up from the laptop. "If I publish this, you're going to become the most wanted woman in New York. Every criminal organization with ties to the Lucianos will be hunting you." "I know. You'll never be safe again." "I'm not safe now." Rachel studied her for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" "Because they killed my mother. Because they're holding my husband prisoner. Because I'm done being afraid of monsters." Selena met her gaze. "And because someone needs to stop them before they destroy anyone else." Rachel nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll do it. But you need to go into protective custody. Right now. I have contacts at the FBI. "No, not yet." "Selena, they're moving Damien today, taking him somewhere outside the city. If I don't get to him first, he's dead." "Then let the FBI handle it." "The FBI will take days to build a case." "He doesn't have days, he has hours." Rachel closed the laptop. "You're going back to that estate?" "Yes." "That's insane." "Probably. They'll kill you the second you walk through the door." "Maybe, but at least I'll die trying to save someone instead of hiding while they murder him." Rachel shook her head. "You really love him." "Unfortunately." "Then take this." Rachel pulled something from her bag, a small recording device. "It's got GPS tracking. The second you turn it on, it broadcasts your location to my phone and starts recording everything around you. If something happens to you, at least there'll be evidence." Selena took the device. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just don't die." Rachel stood and walked away with the laptop tucked under her arm. Selena sat alone on the bench with the recording device in her hand and her heart pounding like a war drum. She was going back to the Luciano estate, back to the place that had held her prisoner, back to the people who'd killed her mother, back to save the man she'd somehow fallen in love with despite every logical reason not to. It was reckless, stupid, suicidal, but it was also the only choice she could live with. Selena stood up and headed for the subway. She arrived at the Luciano estate just after 1 in the afternoon. The gates were closed, guards everywhere. Selena walked straight up to the main entrance and pressed the intercom button. "Can I help you?" A bored voice. "Tell Vincent that Selena Luciano is here, and I want to make a deal." 5 seconds of silence. Then the voice came back. "Stay where you are." 2 minutes later, the gates opened. 6 armed guards surrounded her immediately. They searched her roughly, confiscated her phone, and found the recording device Rachel had given her. One of the guards held it up. "What's this?" "Insurance," Selena said. They dragged her inside. The mansion looked different in daylight, less intimidating, more like a museum than a fortress. But the guns were real enough. They took her to the main office where Vincent sat behind Damien's desk like he'd already won. Isabella stood by the window wearing black. Marco leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, and Evelyn sat in one of the leather chairs looking like a cat that had finally caught a mouse. "Well," Vincent said, "the prodigal wife returns. I have to admit, I'm impressed you made it out of the house without getting caught." "Where's Damien?" Selena demanded. "Safe. For now." "I want to see him." "Not until we discuss your deal. You said you wanted to make one." Selena forced herself to stay calm. "I have evidence. Everything my mother collected. Bank statements, recordings, documents. Enough to bury this family." Isabella turned from the window. "If you had evidence, you would have gone to the authorities by now." "I did. It's being published as we speak." The room went very still. Vincent's smile faded. "You're lying. Check your phone. It should be going live right about now." Marco pulled out his phone and started scrolling. His face went white. "She's not lying. It's all over the news. Every major outlet. They're calling it the biggest organized crime expose in decades." Isabella moved faster than Selena would have thought possible for a woman her age. She crossed the room and grabbed Selena by the throat. "You stupid little girl. Do you have any idea what you've just done?" Selena couldn't breathe, but she forced out the words anyway. "I destroyed you." Isabella's grip tightened. "You destroyed yourself." "Let her go." Vincent's voice was cold. "Killing her now doesn't fix anything." Isabella released Selena's throat and stepped back. Selena gasped for air while her vision swam. "We need to move," Marco said. "The FBI will be here within the hour." "Then we leave now," Vincent said. "Isabella, get the offshore accounts ready. Marco, start the emergency evacuation protocol." "What about Damien?" Marco asked. "He's a loose end. Handle it." Selena's blood went cold. "No." Vincent looked at her with empty eyes. "You wanted to save him so badly? Fine. You can die with him." He nodded to the guards. "Take her to the vault. Put them both in the car. Drive them to the river. Make it look like an accident." The guards grabbed Selena's arms. She fought, kicked, screamed. It didn't matter. They dragged her toward the door while Vincent and Isabella made plans to disappear, and Evelyn watched with that same cold smile. This was how it ended. Not with triumph, not with justice, just drowning in the Hudson River with the man she'd tried to save. They hauled her down to the basement, through the service corridors, toward the vault. The door was already open. Inside, Damien was standing with his hands still cuffed but his eyes sharp and furious. "Selena, I'm sorry," she whispered as they shoved her inside. "I tried." The guards uncuffed Damien and pushed them both toward the exit at gunpoint. "Move!" one of them barked. They were led through a garage to a black SUV, forced into the back seat. Two guards climbed in front. The engine started. Selena looked at Damien. His face was bruised and bloody, but his eyes were still defiant. "I love you," she said. "I know." The car pulled out of the garage and headed toward the main gates. Selena's hand found Damien's under the seat. He squeezed once. A promise or a goodbye? Maybe both. The SUV reached the gates, and sirens exploded across the estate. Red and blue lights flooded the driveway from every direction. Federal vehicles, dozens of them, blocking every exit. "FBI, stop the vehicle!" The driver slammed on the brakes. "What the hell?" The doors were ripped open. Federal agents in tactical gear dragged the guards out at gunpoint. Someone pulled Selena from the car while others surrounded Damien. "Selena Luciano?" A woman in an FBI jacket appeared beside her. "I'm Agent Morrison. Are you injured?" Selena couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. "The journalist called us," Agent Morrison said. "Gave us your location from the GPS tracker. We've been monitoring the estate for the last 40 minutes. Reality slammed into Selena like a freight train. Rachel had tracked her. The recording device had worked. The FBI had heard everything. They'd come just in time. "Damien." Selena tried to turn back toward the car. "He's being detained for questioning. So are you. But you're both safe now. Safe. The word felt foreign. Selena's legs gave out. Someone caught her before she hit the ground. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Damien being led toward a federal vehicle. He looked back at her once. Their eyes met. And for the first time since she'd married him, Damien Luciano smiled. Not a cold smile. Not a calculated smile. A real one. Then everything faded to nothing. Selena woke up in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. The ceiling was white. The walls were beige. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead like dying insects. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or how she'd gotten here. Then it all came flooding back. The estate, the guards, the car, the FBI. Damien's smile. Selena sat up too fast and her vision swam. Her throat ached where Isabella had grabbed her. Her wrists were bruised from the guards. Every muscle in her body felt like it had been through a war. Maybe it had. A woman in an FBI jacket sat in a chair by the door. She looked up when Selena moved. "You're awake. Good. I'll get Agent Morrison." She left before Selena could ask any questions. 2 minutes later, Agent Morrison entered with a file folder and a tired expression that said she'd been doing this job too long to be surprised by anything. "How are you feeling?" Morrison asked. "Like I got hit by a truck." "Close enough." Morrison sat down in the chair and opened the folder. "You've been unconscious for 6 hours. The doctors say you're dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from acute stress. But you'll live." "Where's Damien?" "In federal custody, being questioned." "Is he okay?" "Physically, yes. Legally." Morrison's expression was grim. "That's more complicated." Selena's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It means your husband is the head of one of the most powerful crime families in New York. Even with the evidence you provided, building a case that sticks is going to take time. And his lawyers are very good." "He didn't kill my mother. Isabella did." "We know." Isabella Luciano was arrested 3 hours ago along with Vincent Luciano and 12 other members of the organization. They're all being charged with racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 30 other felonies. Selena's breath caught. They're actually going to prison. If we can make the charges stick, yes. But these people have resources, political connections, the best defense attorneys money can buy. Morrison leaned forward. "Which is why we need your testimony. You're the only witness who can directly connect Isabella to your mother's death." "What about Damien? What about him? Will he go to prison too?" Morrison was quiet for a moment. "That depends on what he knows and what he's willing to testify to. If he cooperates, we might be able to offer him a deal. If he doesn't," she shrugged. "He's looking at 20 years minimum." 20 years. The number hit Selena like a physical blow. "Can I see him?" she asked quietly. "Not yet. He's still being processed, but I can arrange a meeting once he's cleared through holding." "When will that be?" "Tomorrow morning, maybe." Tomorrow felt like a lifetime away. Morrison stood. "In the meantime, you need to rest. We have agents posted outside your door for protection. Vincent Luciano's lawyers are already trying to discredit you in the media, and we don't want anyone getting to you before the trial." "What are they saying about me?" "That you're a gold digger, a liar, a woman scorned trying to destroy her husband's family." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "The usual character assassination. Don't read the comments." She left. Selena lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. The Lucianos were in custody. The evidence was public. The empire was collapsing. She'd won. So why did it feel like she'd lost everything? 24 hours later, Selena was sitting in a small gray room at the Federal Detention Center, waiting for Damien. The room had a metal table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner recording everything. Nothing about this felt real. The door opened. Damien walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit that looked wrong on him. Prison clothes on a man who'd spent his whole life in tailored suits. His face was still bruised, his hands were cuffed in front of him, but his eyes were sharp and clear when they met hers. A guard gestured for him to sit. "You have 30 minutes. The door closed behind them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Selena said, "You're alive. So are you. I wasn't sure if they'd let me see you." Morrison pulled strings. "She thinks if we talk, I'll be more likely to cooperate with their investigation." Damien's mouth curved slightly. She's probably right. Selena's hands clenched on the table. Are you going to cooperate? Depends on what they want. They want you to testify against Isabella, against Vincent, against everyone. I know. Will you do it? Damien was quiet for a moment. If I testify, I destroy what's left of my family. My father built that empire over 40 years. I've spent the last decade protecting it, and now they're asking me to burn it all down. Your family tried to kill us. I know. Isabella murdered my mother. I know. Vincent beat you until you couldn't stand. I know. Damien leaned forward. The chains on his cuffs rattled against the table. But they're still my family, Selena, and in my world you don't betray family, no matter what they do, no matter how far they fall. Selena felt something crack inside her chest. So you're protecting them. I'm protecting the only thing I have left. What about me? The question hung in the air between them. Damien's expression shifted. Something vulnerable flickered across his face before he buried it again. You're free now. The evidence you gave the FBI will put Isabella and Vincent away for decades. You can go back to your life, finish school, take care of your brother. Forget any of this ever happened. I can't forget you. You should try. Selena stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. Don't do that. Don't push me away like I'm some stranger you can dismiss. Selena, I went back to that estate to save you. I gave the FBI everything my mother died protecting. I almost drowned in a river because I thought you were worth saving. Her voice cracked. So don't sit there and tell me to forget you. Damien stood too. The cuffs made his movements awkward, but his eyes were intense. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. Do you love me or not? Yes. The word came out flat and certain. Then testify. Help the FBI take down Isabella and Vincent. Do the right thing for once in your goddamn life. And if I do that, I lose everything. My name, my legacy, everything my father built. You'll have me. Damien laughed. It was bitter and broken. That's not enough. The words hit Selena like a slap. She stepped back. Then I guess we're done here. Selena. No. You made your choice. You chose a legacy built on blood and lies over a future with me. So I'm done fighting for someone who won't fight for himself. She walked toward the door. I'm testifying, Damien said quietly. Selena stopped with her hand on the doorknob. What? I'm testifying against Isabella, against Vincent, against everyone. Damien's voice was rough. But I need you to understand what that means. It means I lose my family, my name, everything I've ever known, and I'm doing it for you, because you're right. You're worth more than a legacy built on murder. Selena turned slowly. Damien was still standing by the table with his hands cuffed and his eyes locked on hers. I love you, he said. I've loved you since you played violin at that dinner and made every hardened killer in the room shut up and listen. I loved you when you threatened to destroy my family. I loved you when you walked back into that estate knowing they'd probably kill you. He took a breath. And I love you now. Even though loving you is the most dangerous thing I've ever done. Tears burned in Selena's eyes. You really mean that? I don't lie about things that matter. She crossed the room and kissed him, hard and desperate and furious. The kind of kiss that tasted like blood and salt, and 3 years of grief finally released. When she pulled back, Damien's eyes were wet. If I testify, I'm going to prison anyway, he said quietly. The FBI will offer me a reduced sentence, maybe 10 years instead of 20, but I'm still going to lose you. Then we'll wait. That's a long time. I've waited my whole life to stop being afraid of monsters. I can wait 10 more years to be with one who's trying to become something better. Damien smiled. It was small and broken and absolutely genuine. You're insane. Probably. And you're the best thing that ever happened to me. I know. The door opened. The guard stepped in. Time's up. Damien looked at Selena one last time. Don't wait for me if you find something better. There's nothing better than you. You're lying. Maybe, but it's a good lie. They took him away. Selena stood alone in the gray room with her heart pounding and her future uncertain. But for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something close to hope. The trial took 4 months. Isabella Luciano's defense team tried everything: character assassination, procedural delays, witness intimidation. But the evidence Selena's mother had collected was too thorough, too damning. Bank statements that couldn't be explained, recordings that couldn't be denied, photographs that couldn't be dismissed. And when Damian Luciano took the stand and testified against his own stepmother, the case became airtight. Isabella was convicted on 17 counts, including conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and money laundering. Vincent was convicted on 12 counts. Marco fled to Argentina and was arrested 3 weeks later. Evelyn disappeared completely. Some people said she was in Monaco. Others said she'd changed her name and moved to Southeast Asia. Selena didn't care. Her sister had made her choices, and Selena was done carrying the weight of other people's mistakes. Damian was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison with eligibility for parole after 5. It was the best deal Morrison could negotiate. On the day of his sentencing, Selena sat in the courtroom and watched him stand before the judge in a suit his lawyers had brought him. He looked almost like himself again. Almost. "Damian Luciano," the judge said, "you've cooperated extensively with federal prosecutors. You've provided testimony that helped dismantle one of the largest organized crime operations in this state's history. But you were also complicit in that operation for over a decade. You profited from it. You enabled it, and you cannot escape accountability for that." Damian stood perfectly still. "I understand. Do you have anything to say before I impose your sentence?" Damian glanced back at Selena. Their eyes met. Then he turned back to the judge. "I spent most of my life believing power was the only thing that mattered, that survival required cruelty, that showing weakness was the same as being weak." He paused. "I was wrong. The strongest person I've ever met is the woman sitting behind me, and she taught me that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing." The judge nodded. "Then perhaps you'll use your time to reflect on that lesson. 8 years in federal prison, 5 years probation upon release." The gavel fell. Guards approached Damian. He looked back at Selena one more time. She mouthed 3 words. "I'll be here." Then they took him away. Oops. 1 year later. Selena stood outside the storage facility in Queens holding a violin case that had spent too long gathering dust. She'd graduated from college 6 months ago, started working at a nonprofit that helped victims of organized crime rebuild their lives, moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn that didn't have armed guards or surveillance cameras, or the weight of a dead family's expectations. Noah was finishing his 2nd year of medical school. Their father had been convicted of embezzlement and was serving 3 years in minimum security. Margaret had divorced him and moved to Florida with most of his remaining assets. The Vale family had imploded just as thoroughly as the Lucianos. But Selena was still standing. She opened the violin case and pulled out the instrument her mother had played for 15 years. It still felt right in her hands. She'd started taking lessons again, playing in small venues around the city. Nothing fancy, just coffee shops and community centers. But it felt honest, like she was finally living the life her mother had wanted for her. Selena's phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. She answered carefully. "Hello? You have a prepaid call from Damian Luciano, an inmate at FCI Otisville. To accept this call, press 1. Selena's heart jumped. She pressed 1. "Hey!" Damian's voice came through, rougher than she remembered, tired, but still him. "Hey," Selena said. "How are you?" "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I started playing violin again." "Yeah? Yeah. I played at a community center last week. Nothing professional, just music. I wish I could have heard it." "You will, when you get out." Silence for a moment. Then Damian said, 4 more years. "I know. That's a long time. I've waited this long. I can wait longer." "You don't have to, Selena. If you meet someone..." "I'm not going to meet someone. Stop trying to give me permission to leave." "I'm trying to give you permission to live." "I am living. I'm just doing it while waiting for you." She heard him exhale. "You're still insane." "Definitely. And I still love you." I know. They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important, about the weather, about the books Damien was reading, about the nonprofit work Selena was doing. Then a recorded voice interrupted. You have 1 minute remaining. I have to go, Damien said. I know. Selena? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being worth it. The call disconnected. Selena stood alone outside the storage facility holding her mother's violin and staring at the Manhattan skyline in the distance. She thought about everything that had happened, everything she'd survived, everything she'd lost, and everything she'd gained. And she realized something. She wasn't the backup bride anymore. She wasn't the replacement daughter. She wasn't the girl who apologized for existing. She was Selena Vale, soon to be Selena Luciano again when Damien got out. And she'd spent the last year learning that survival wasn't about being the strongest or the most ruthless or the most willing to sacrifice your humanity for power. It was about being stubborn enough to keep breathing when everything tried to suffocate you. It was about loving people even when loving them was dangerous. It was about choosing truth over comfort. And it was about believing that even monsters could learn to be human if someone was brave enough to show them how. 4 years later. Selena stood outside FCI Otisville on a cold November morning watching the prison gates. She'd made this drive once a month for the last 5 years, sat in visiting rooms, talked through phones and plexiglass barriers, written letters that never quite said everything she wanted to say. But today was different. Today, Damien was coming home. The gates opened. A figure stepped out wearing civilian clothes that hung a little too loose on his frame. He'd lost weight. His hair was shorter. There were new lines around his eyes. But when he saw Selena, he smiled. That same genuine smile from the day the FBI had arrested them. Selena ran to him. They collided in the middle of the parking lot, arms wrapped around each other, holding on like they were afraid the other might disappear. You're real, Damien murmured into her hair. I kept thinking this was a dream. It's real. I'm real. We're real. He pulled back just enough to look at her. You waited. I told you I would. 5 years is a long time. And I'd wait 5 more if I had to. Selena cupped his face in her hands. But I'd rather not. So let's get out of here before they change their minds and drag you back inside. Damien laughed. It sounded rusty, like he'd forgotten how. Where are we going? Anywhere that's not here. They walked to Selena's car, a used sedan she'd bought 3 years ago. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just functional. Damien slid into the passenger seat and stared at the dashboard like it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. I forgot what freedom felt like, he said quietly. Selena started the engine. Then let me remind you. They drove south toward the city, past strip malls and gas stations, and the ordinary landscape of people living ordinary lives. Where do we live? Damien asked. Brooklyn. Small apartment, 1 bedroom. It's nothing like the estate. Good. I hated that place anyway. Selena glanced at him. What do you want to do first? Honestly, I want to hear you play violin. Selena's throat tightened. Really? I've been thinking about it for 5 years. About that night you played at dinner and made the whole room go silent. I want to hear that again, but this time without the audience, without the performance, just you and the music. Okay. They drove back to Selena's apartment. It was small and crowded and filled with secondhand furniture. Nothing like the mansion. Nothing like the life Damien had lost. But it was honest. Selena pulled out her mother's violin and tuned it carefully. Damien sat on the couch and watched her with an intensity that made her nervous. What do you want me to play? She asked. Anything. Everything. I don't care. Selena lifted the violin to her shoulder and started to play. The same Russian piece her mother had taught her. The one she'd played that first night at the Luciano family dinner. But this time it felt different. Not like a weapon, not like a performance, just like music. The notes filled the small apartment and spilled out through the open window into the Brooklyn afternoon. When she finished, Damien was crying, not sobbing, just silent tears sliding down his face like he'd finally let himself feel something he'd been holding back for years. Selena set down the violin and sat beside him. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I don't know why. You don't have to explain. I spent 5 years in a cell learning how to shut off emotions, how to survive by not feeling anything. And then I hear you play, and it's like everything I buried comes flooding back." Selena took his hand. "That's not a bad thing. It feels like it. Feeling things means you're still human. After everything you've been through, that's a victory." Damien looked at her, really looked at her. "How did I get this lucky?" "You didn't. You made terrible choices and suffered the consequences. But you also chose to do the right thing when it mattered. And that counts for something. Does it count enough?" "Enough for what?" Damien stood up and pulled something from his pocket. A small box. Selena's breath caught. He opened it to reveal a simple silver ring. Nothing expensive, nothing flashy. Just a band with an inscription inside. Worth the wait. "We got married in a cathedral surrounded by criminals and lies," Damien said. "I want to do it again, properly this time. No contracts. No business arrangements. Just you and me choosing each other because we want to." Selena's eyes filled with tears. "We're already married." "Legally, but not in any way that matters." He knelt down in front of her. "Selena Vale, will you marry me again? For real this time?" "Yes." No hesitation, no fear, no doubt. Just yes. Damien slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her like they had all the time in the world. And maybe they did. 6 months later. They held a small ceremony in Central Park near the bench where Selena had met Rachel Kim and handed over the evidence that destroyed the Luciano empire. No cathedral, no crowds, no armed guards or media coverage. Just Selena and Damien and Noah and a handful of friends who'd stood by them through everything. Rachel Kim was there. Maria had flown in from California where she'd started a new life under a new name. Agent Morrison came despite saying she never attended weddings. Evelyn didn't come. Nobody had been able to find her. And honestly, Selena didn't care. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness. The ceremony was short and simple. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. "I promise to choose you every day," Selena said. "Even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when it's the stupidest thing I could possibly do." Damien smiled. "I promise to be worth choosing, to keep trying to be better than I was, to build something honest instead of inheriting something corrupt." They kissed while the sun set over Manhattan, and the city that had almost destroyed them glowed in the distance. Afterward, there was dinner at a small restaurant in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, just good food and better company. Noah pulled Selena aside during dessert. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. "About what?" "About him. About everything. You could still walk away, start over somewhere new." Selena looked across the restaurant at Damien. He was talking with Rachel about the nonprofit work Selena had been doing, laughing at something she'd said, looking almost normal. "Almost." "I'm sure," Selena said. "He's not perfect. We're not perfect. But we're honest. And after everything we survived, that's worth more than anything else." Noah hugged her. "Then I'm happy for you." "Even though I married a convicted felon?" "Even though." The night ended late. People drifted away slowly, reluctant to let the moment end. Finally, it was just Selena and Damien walking back to their apartment through Brooklyn streets that smelled like garbage and possibility. "What do we do now?" Damien asked. "We live," Selena said. "We work. We figure out how to be normal people instead of survivors." "I don't know how to be normal." "Neither do I, so we'll figure it out together." They walked in silence for a while. Then Damien said, "I got a job offer yesterday." Selena stopped walking. "You did?" "Construction company. They need someone to manage logistics. It's entry level. The pay is terrible, but it's honest work." "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. I've spent my whole life running a criminal empire. I don't know if I can just build things instead of destroying them." Selena took his hand. "Then learn. You learned how to testify against your family. You learned how to survive in prison. You can learn how to build something good." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and you try again. That's what normal people do." Damien pulled her close. "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy, but it's possible. And that's enough." They reached their apartment building and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Inside, their small one-bedroom apartment waited, cramped and messy and filled with secondhand furniture, but it was theirs, built on honesty instead of blood. Chosen instead of inherited, earned instead of stolen. Selena looked at Damien standing in the doorway of their tiny apartment, wearing civilian clothes and a wedding ring that cost less than his old shoes. He looked nothing like the mafia boss who'd married her in a cathedral 3 years ago. He looked human, flawed and uncertain and trying to be better, and that was more than enough. "Welcome home," Selena said. Damien smiled. "I've been waiting my whole life to have one." They closed the door behind them, and for the first time in either of their lives, they were exactly where they were supposed to be. Not trapped, not running, not surviving. Just living. Together. The wrong bride had become the right wife. And the mafia boss had become a man learning to build instead of destroy. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was honest. And after everything they'd survived, honest was the only happily ever after that mattered.